Hi, the introverted cynist here. Today, I am going to explain a 2013 American horror film called The Monkey's Paw. Warning, spoilers ahead. Kick back and take care. The story opens in a bolt and straps factory where we see the protagonist, Jake, working. Jake is 30 and just got promoted in his job and has been working extra hours to make ends meet. He has a terminally ill mother who he is not able to meet due to his work and past family issue. He also has a brother, Charlie, and a sister-in-law, Sandy, who takes care of his mother at the hospital. Oftentimes, Charlie depends a lot on Jake to help out with their mother's hospital bills and is less bothered about his well-being. Jake only has a handful of co-workers he considers as friends: Tony, Cobb, and Catfish. Catfish loves guns, whereas Jake loves cars. Cobb is a divorced, carefree and classy old man who oftentimes had Jake's back and has supported him through his life. Cobb has a son from his previous marriage, and due to his friction with his ex-wife, Abby, he has a court order not to come anywhere near his son and his ex-wife. Jake's superior, Gillespie, now becomes agitated with him for one truck coming in late to the client. Jake says that he has a lot on his plate and has been working really hard to set things right. Gil now reminds him, no more errors because it is his job on the line and not Jake's, and leaves. Cobb now mimics what Gil said and cheers him up. Meanwhile, Kevin, their authoritarian boss, now gets a call from the client saying about the shortcoming of the truck to his factory and gets chastised. Kevin now calls in Gil to talk about the issue. Jake now asks Cobb that he feels somewhat responsible for Gil's situation. Cobb now playfully informs him to call his ex-girlfriend, Olivia, to save Gil's job. 3 years ago, Olivia broke up with Jake and is ironically married to his boss, Kevin. Jake now becomes annoyed with Cobb, saying it's the worst idea to say, and leaves. While informing Gil to sign some papers, Kevin now informs Jake that Gil is fired. Jake requests Kevin to take him back, but Kevin says his decision is final. While packing things up, Cobb now sarcastically argues with Kevin for firing Gil. Kevin now mocks and belittles Cobb's work, making him feel irrelevant, and orders him to get back to work. Being a tough man, Cobb just salutes him. After work, Catfish now offers Jake a ride, but he says that he wants to walk alone to clear his mind. Later that evening, outside the bar, Jake now looks at a GT and gazes at it in awe and asks to whom does it belong to, but Kathleen, the waitress, says that she doesn't know. Jake now joins Cobb and they both share a drink. Kathleen comes around Cobb and starts flirting with him. Just then, Catfish shows them Gil, looking sad. Jake now says, ever since he broke up with Olivia, he has been making bad decisions and bad things come into his life. Cobb says that his situation is much worse, saying that the court system is rigged to favor mothers and not fathers, and he desires to be with his own son. Jake sympathizes with him and decides to meet Gil to reconcile. Jake now says that he is sorry for what happened, but Gil sarcastically says that his opportunity to get another job is wide due to his young age and mocks him. Cobb joins them, and while consoling him, he spots something and surprisingly asks Gil what it is. Gil says it's a monkey's paw and starts unfolding the story to both of them. Gil's dad gave it to him when he was a child and said to him that it could do magic. The paw can give the owner 3 wishes, and it can bend a man's fate to his will and can give whatever he wants. Cobb and Jake laughs it off, feeling that it's just superstition. Gil now says to Jake to try it. Being a good sport, Jake wishes that the car outside to be his. When Cobb tries to make his wish, Gil stops him, saying that only after Jake has finished all his 3 wishes, the next person can start wishing, making Cobb unhappy. Gil hands Jake the paw, saying that it belongs to him now, and says that taking it away will be doing Gil good and get him some peace of mind. After finishing his last drink with the guys, he mysteriously looks at Jake. Later outside, after all the cars have left, they notice only the GT hasn't left, and Cobb, now drunk, while looking, informs Jake that the doors are open and the keys are still inside. Jake says that it's just a coincidence, but when Cobb says that the wish he wished has been granted, makes him have second thoughts. Feeling ridiculous with the whole idea, he takes the car with Cobb along and drives enthusiastically. After a while, he drives the car to Kevin's home and meets Olivia. Jake, while drunk, awkwardly tries to make conversation with her, saying that he got a new car and wished for it. He now asks where Kevin is, to which she says he has gone for a charity event and brushes him off as he is drunk and it's getting late. While driving off, Jake gets into an accident after seeing an alligator on the road, with Cobb flying off through the car window. Jake is hurt minorly, but after checking with Cobb, he sees that Cobb is severely hurt and he eventually dies. Jake now falls back and starts panicking. He tries to call an ambulance, but he gets the monkey's paw, and in a desperate situation, he uses his second wish to make Cobb alive and sees nothing has changed. He now observes another truck coming and he tries to call for help. But seeing the situation is not favoring him, he escapes the scene. It was actually the waitress from the bar, and after seeing Cobb hurt, she becomes hysteric and calls an ambulance. While describing the situation to them, she shockingly watches Cobb behind her, delusional and shook up, and asks if he's still dead. Jake now goes through the forest and sees an abandoned warehouse. He now witnesses a demonic graffiti and apprehensively takes the monkey's paw and throws it and quickly runs from there. While taking care of him at her house, she feels affectionate and starts kissing him and hops on, trying to make love. Just then, she spots his tattoo with his ex-wife's name. After seeing it, he snaps out and pushes her, killing her mojo. After washing up, she now disappointed, informs he should go home. While leaving, he takes her hoodie. But when she tries to take her hoodie back, he strangles and kills her and leaves unfazed. Next morning, Jake, now out of place, tries to meet the police to share what happened. Detective Margolis now spots Jake and asks if anything is wrong, but he doesn't have the guts and leaves, making the detective suspicious. Meanwhile, Cobb now tries to meet his son to go fishing. But Abby now becomes annoyed seeing him and tries to call the police and goes inside with their son, making him leave. Later on at work, Jake tries calling the hospitals nearby and inquires if anyone named Cobb has been admitted. But they say no. He then witnesses Olivia having an argument with Kevin in his office. After leaving, he goes back to her to inquire what has happened, seeing her unhappy. Hesitantly, she says that she wants everything to go back to normal and leaves frustrated, tempting him to have second thoughts. While walking home, he gets called in by Cobb in a cemetery. Jake becomes perplexed seeing him alive. Cobb informs him that the magic is working and he requests Jake to give him the third wish. Jake now convinces him, saying that it's just a coincidence and trash. Cobb now assumes that Jake wants to use the third wish to get back with Olivia, but he informs him that it's unnecessary and he enigmatically assures him that he will take care of it. That night, Kevin is seen at the office after making love with another woman. After sending her home, Kevin starts hearing noises in the factory and suddenly, he sees Cobb approaching him and drops him unconscious. His hands are now strapped and his head trapped in a machine. Cobb, due to the friction that he had with him earlier and for Jake to get Olivia, he now presses the button and kills him gleefully. Next morning, Jake now visits the abandoned warehouse and starts searching for the paw, but he is not able to find it anywhere. Just then, he gets a phone call from his brother, Charlie. At his home, Charlie now condescendingly asks why Jake hasn't visited his mother. Jake says that he has been busy at work and been taking a lot of hours due to the sudden promotion and starts getting annoyed. He now gets a call from Olivia saying that Kevin hasn't come home. After meeting in her tailoring shop, she informs him they are having friction and he then offers her a coffee to cheer up. Later at home, Jake finds Cobb sitting in the corner and demands the last wish. But Jake says that he cannot find the monkey's paw and pleads, saying that he is in a desperate and tough position with his mother's condition. He informs him something has broken inside Cobb and he leaves his house. At the hospital, where his mother is bedridden, surprisingly, Cobb arrives and says he is a friend of Jake and apologizes to her and suffocates her to death. After learning that his mother is dead, he starts mourning. Afterwards, he gets a call from Cobb, informing him to meet at the cemetery. Jake now furiously approaches him and starts beating him left and right. Cobb counters his attacks and furiously demands him that he needs his last wish to get back his son. After saying that he doesn't have it, he threatens him to find it immediately. Next day, Jake meets Charlie and his wife and reveals the whole story to them. Charlie says that the story is ridiculous, but Sandy believes Jake. Jake now requests both of them to leave town for some time. Sandy persuades Charlie and he agrees. Jake meets the police detective and informs him his side of the story and Cobb's involvement, but they actually suspect Jake for Kevin's death due to Olivia being his ex-girlfriend, and instructs him to not leave town. With no other hope, he meets Gil for answers with catfish. Gil says that he had a rough childhood and he had a brother who hated his father. So, he joined the military as he hit 18 to escape his home. And his father decided to rent out his room. One day, a stranger arrived for a room and informed that he had no money to pay, but he traded the monkey's paw to him and informed him about the magical powers that it possesses, making his dad captivated. As a joke, he thought that he could pay off the mortgage by 3 wishes, with the stranger leaving the next day. Days later, they learn that his brother has been killed in the war, and then surprisingly, they get his life insurance policy with the exact money that his dad owed his mortgage, and he felt that the stranger was telling him the truth. After using the 2 wishes, his dad started abusing his wife and soon had a fatal death and hands Gil the paw, informing him never to play with fate. Intimidated, Jake asks him that he has one last wish to undo everything, but Gil says that it might give him what he asked for, but not the way he wanted it, and it'll be much more sinister and dark. After hearing all this, they leave. At night, Gil has an anonymous visitor, and it happened to be Cobb. Cobb, now with a machete, mercilessly kills Gil. Meanwhile, Jake meets Abby and gets informed that Cobb was all messed up after she met him and always had a darker side and was a bad husband. Police, now in the crime scene of Gil's murder, deduces that Jake was telling them the truth and Cobb is behind all of this, according to the witnesses nearby. Jake now borrows Catfish's truck and gun for self-defense and doesn't inform him about Cobb's issue. When getting ready to get out of town, Charlie and his wife now gets pursued by Cobb and his truck. Meanwhile, Jake now goes to Cobb's home to kill him once and for all, but he doesn't find him. Just then, Charlie calls him to say that Cobb could be behind his truck to kill them. Charlie and Sandy tries to seek shelter in an abandoned warehouse, but Cobb follows them. Jake, with no other way, only listens to what's happening. Charlie tries to attack him, but he gets slaughtered, and Jake now helplessly listens to them get murdered, and Cobb informs that he will meet him in Abby's home. Frustrated and angry, Jake again goes back to the abandoned warehouse to find the paw. He searches everywhere, but he couldn't find it. Finally, he finds a rat hole and with great trepidation finds the paw being nibbled by a rat and collects it. Outside, a busy festival is going on. The detective now enters Olivia's shop to assure her safety from Cobb. Suddenly, Cobb comes behind him and kills him by cracking his neck. She tries to escape, but he drops her unconscious and drags her and dumps her in a garbage disposal. He now finds a mask and conspicuously drags an unconscious Olivia in the garbage bin among the crowd to his car and brings her to Abby's home. After some time, Jake rescues Olivia and says that he is inside. They both carefully enter the house and see Abby weeping with the child. Suddenly, Cobb now grabs hold of Olivia with a knife and threatens him. Jake now drops the gun and takes out the paw. He now pleads to Cobb that it will ruin his life if he wishes it, but Cobb becomes adamant and says that he wants his son back. He now hears Abby saying that she wants her son as well, making him be in a tough position. So, in an ironic twist, he wishes his friend, Tony Cobb, to have his soul back. Having all hope lost, Cobb stabs her in the chest. Abby now instructs her son to go inside and lock the door. Jake drops him on the ground and starts attacking him. They both fight together, but suddenly something snaps in Cobb's mind. Jake now strikes his eye immediately. Cobb, now in great pain, requests his son to open the door. Abby tries blocking him, but he drops her. She now requests him to come back to normal. Cobb now slowly comes out from the trance and apologizes to Abby and takes the gun and shoots himself. Olivia now checks up on Jake to make sure he's okay. Afterwards, Jake wakes up from his concussion in the ambulance and he deliriously asks where the monkey paw is and becomes violent, not knowing where it is. After a couple of days, Abby's home has been sold and she and her son is planning to move on with their lives to another location. The movie ends with Abby's son now fondling with the monkey's paw, having known what its true potential is. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and comment if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more videos.